What groups do you belong to at work? For me, I belong to a fair number of groups. We have a group of staff and academics developing this MicroMasters program, and we call ourselves the BUSL3 team, although this overlaps with the larger UQX team. I also had the management discipline at UQ Business School, but we call ourselves a group or a cluster, not a team. I also sit on a number of school committees, groups organized to achieve particular decision-making or strategic objectives. And I maintain other, less formal group memberships across the university. These days, everyone belongs to numerous different organizational groups, teams, committees, task forces, and panels. In many cases, we refer to our groups as teams. Maybe your organization leadership calls itself the executive team. But are all of these groups really teams? What makes a team? Katzenbach and Smith point out that work groups are not necessarily synonymous with teams, and that it is important to recognize the distinction between them so you know whether or not making the effort to generate a team dynamic will actually yield better outcomes. Specifically, they define a team as a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, set of performance goals, and an approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. This definition reveals 4 key team attributes. Complementary skills. Individual knowledge, skills, and abilities are not redundant, but rather work together to help reach team objectives. Commitment to a common purpose. Individuals share a common objective and are committed to that objective. Shared performance goals. There are shared team-level performance goals rather than a collection of individual goals. And mutual accountability. All individuals in the team are held responsible, and indeed take responsibility, for the success or failure of the team. Working groups, on the other hand, are often characterized by a single authoritative leader, and members are individually accountable for individual tasks. You can often tell whether or not you have a group or a team by taking a close look at what happens in meetings. With teams, the discussions are open-ended and focused on problem solving. They discuss issues together, decide together, and actually do work together rather than independently. Communication is multidirectional. With groups, meetings are run for coordination. Leaders offer the opportunity for discussion and then delegate tasks. Communication is often one way from the leader to the followers, taking a more directive approach. Consistent with this view, Fisher, Hunter, and McCrossan report that managers tend to see teams as more innovative and well-rounded, whereas groups are more about individual interests, persuasion, influence, and networking. Now, thinking about your own work groups, are you a team or a group? In my own case, our development of the Business Leadership MicroMasters program does tend to operate like a team, although some individual role players do operate as group members. However, in other aspects of academic life, scholars all work towards individual goals, and thus are more of a working group. So why then do we always call ourselves a team? Because teams are in vogue. Teams are a buzzword. Katzenbach and Smith acknowledge that people use the term team very loosely, almost as a way to signal high performance. Moreover, by calling the group a team, leaders try to encourage identification with the group and increase motivation and commitment to its goals. In other words, the idea of a team is being used as a rhetorical device to influence follower behavior, rather than reflecting a particular group structure or dynamic. But there is a consequence to simply equating teams with effectiveness. In many cases, teams are actually less effective at achieving organizational goals. I may have caught you off guard on that one, so let me re-emphasize the point. Which is more effective, a team or a collection of individuals? Well, the short answer is, it depends. Specifically, it depends on what you mean by more effective. What is the goal that you are trying to achieve? What specific group dynamic will result in effectiveness? Teams offer a specific type of group dynamic typified by communication, cooperation, collaboration, and compromise. But these particular dynamics are not always optimal. Teams take a lot of work to develop, and until they hit their performance groove, they can be horribly inefficient. And when it comes to certain organizational objectives, things like creativity and decision-making, tasks that are often associated with teams Teams typically perform worse than a group of individuals. As an example, consider the idea of an executive team. Katzenbach points out that the decision-making objectives of an executive group are often hindered by the inefficiency of teamwork and team building, and can be undermined by an often misplaced focus on consensus and cohesion. So what does this mean for your leadership practice? First, stop assuming that teams are always superior. Second, you can use the team term loosely in your leadership practice as a rhetorical device to encourage group commitment. But be sure you recognize the distinction when it comes time to start building your group. Finally, make an informed decision about whether you want a group or a team. Carefully consider the task objectives and use your reasoned managerial judgment and experience to determine if a team dynamic will help or hinder those objectives. Our discussion of group and team dynamics in this course will help hone your skill in making this determination and lead the team to high performance.